Hello, my name is Keegan Har, and today I'll be going over my final project. The thing I did that makes it unique from what we learned in class is that I use Java Swing, pretty similar in some ways to Java FX. So I'd say kind of killed two birds with one stone in a sense. I used a lot of concepts that I learned about in Java FX while also using something different that we never used before, Java Swing. We talked about Java Swing, but this, I'm actually making a whole video game in it and everything. So to start off with, we have our game file here, which is just the setup for our game. We set up monsters, weapons, the UI for the game. We call everything to start it. Then we have our different stages of the game. We can explore a forest and a town where there's things that we can interact with there. There's combat, all these combats of me fighting things and then resetting the game, which truthfully, there's some things that can still use some work, unfortunately, in the game. Not everything is perfect, but I got everything working at the end of the day. Just some, strings to still be tied together to kind of fix the game up. There's a lot of room for improvement. I didn't try and, pin myself into a corner. I tried to make it as complex as I could while still making it work. So I'll get into that here. But my story and my choice here are essentially what helped me get through the different stages of the game. Because we're using a bunch of buttons and advancing from there. So the choice is obviously which button I'm choosing to use, and the story is relating to the choices as well. And getting the text and all of that to fill in the buttons and choices and to fill in the different parts of the story depending on which buttons I click. So then we have our player, gives functionality to my player, deal damage to monsters, all of that, my name, my weapons, my HP, etc., etc. Yeah, and like I say, functionality to do damage and take damage. Then here we have weapons, give functionality to weapons, to assign, values of damage to the weapons and the name and such, which still has a little bit of work to do as well, which I'll show you in the running program. Then lastly, here we have our monsters, which is the bad guys we're fighting. Goblin and Orc are the two I implemented into the game. They show up at different stages of the game. And yeah, one thing I'll say in terms of functionality and relating to what we did in class, I have a lot of inheritance here. And obviously having different classes, there's some inheritance, but extensions, of JPanel. So I'm extending the functionality of JPanel and then giving different characteristics to it. Obviously, it's how I'm styling my game and creating my game window. So here I will dive into my game. I'll kind of show you the two different ways you can run the game. There's some errors related to it, but so just to preface, I initialize a goblin as the first bad guy. So if we go to town, you can gain a weapon here, keep exploring, you'll get healed. If your health bar was actually below, it actually does have functionality to, it actually will heal you, you will gain health. However, I don't have the best implementation between going between my town and my forest. My town, you can exit the town and then go into the forest here. When you go into the forest from the town, you'll always run into my first initialized goblin. You can fight him. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but the initialization for my weapon when we first go to the town doesn't work very well. When I first had my program working, though, I did have a drop-down label that would allow me to choose my weapon. Along the way, I kind of screwed it up. I don't necessarily know how, so unfortunately, it isn't perfect, but if we go run it again and we go straight into the forest, we'll run into the orc. And if we want to continue exploring, we can't get around the orc. So we will engage in combat with him. And we're using our default weapon, which is our fists, which does 10 damage. You can see that in the code. Again, I need functionality to be able to switch between weapons, but unfortunately I was running out of time and I lost functionality of what I had in the past, so I had to work around it. The orc has a random counter for damage, so sometimes they'll hit us for a lot, sometimes not. So we continuously do 10 damage to him, and boom, we defeat the orc. From here, ideally, I was supposed to, go to end game But for whatever reason, it locks me into the loop in the forest. But you'll see combat does work. My HP bar does go down. I do have a weapon, which is a default weapon. I basically all I needed to add functionality to was I needed to be able to escape out of the forest and go back to the town after. I needed a game over, which I ran into troubles, and I needed a way to select my weapon. So those were the three areas that unfortunately I didn't have time to clean up. But otherwise, everything else works in my code here. You can look through all of it, and I worked very hard on the project. And again, there is a lot of room for improvement, but also I didn't pin myself into a corner where it's like, there is no room for improvement, unfortunately, in some programs where you don't set it up right. So there is a lot of room to be able to, create a ton of weapons and give a ton of functionality to different weapons and choose which ones you want and such. So that is my program at the end of the day. I tried to implement as much as I learned in the class into this. Again, a lot of inheritance and such, and the game does work at the end of the day. You got a health bar working, you've got graphics that work and all that. And so yeah, that is my final project in Java Swing. Thank you very much, and I will upload my code to the submission board now. Thank you very much.